Hello and welcome to Daily Politics and Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman, standing in for a regular host, Hamza Idris, who I understand is almost back, from his annual vacation any moment from now. Now, the National Assembly has passed the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Bill worth 2.17 trillion naira during its third reading, following a successful reading in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. The bill proceeded to the Senate where it received approval. During the plenary session, Senator Adiola Olamilokun Ogun West presented the Appropriations Committee's report leading to the budget's approval. President Tinubu had submitted a letter to both chambers seeking approval for his proposal, making the second of such requests this year. The previous approval of 819.5 billion naira was intended to provide assistance to underprivileged Nigerians. Now, in his letter, the president stressed the importance of implementing additional support measures, including wage increases for public servants and a conditional cash transfer program to assist the most vulnerable members of the society. Interestingly, the supplementary budget has also been subjected to scrutiny by Nigerians who have faulted some of the provisions in the budget. For instance, renovation of the president's official residence in Lagos expected to go 4 billion naira. Renovation of vice president's official residence also in Lagos expected to go 3 billion naira. Construction of office complex in Asorok at 4 billion naira, and also procurement of cars for First Lady's office expectedly to go up 1.5 billion naira. Now, this is going to be the crux of our conversation tonight, as we have in the studio joining us to provide insights to this, Chima Christian. He is a governance advocate and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Chima. Yes, looking at the supplementary appropriation, some would say has a dual age. On the other part, we're talking about providing support to the less privileged who are going through difficult times, especially as a result of the subsidy removal and so on. On the other hand, we're also seeing substantial amount of money being invested, if you like, or channeled towards renovations and all of that, buying cars and the rest of it. What do you make up with this arrangement, especially coming from the executive now that it has been approved?
Well, first, supplementary budget is expected because the budget we are running was passed by the previous presented and passed, and as you would know, there is a change of guard, and expectedly there is a change of priority in government expenditure, and so you had monies moved around and additional expenses catered for. However, mere looking at the budget tells you that it seems like the managers of our economy, the drivers of our affairs, are not in full seize of the current economic realities. And Nigerians are living in very difficult moments. But if you look at our budget, supplementary budget, it appears as if our leaders are not so sensitive to that. You saw the amount of money they voted for renovations of presidential villa and all of those things here in Abuja and then in Lagos. For president, for the vice president, you saw monies appropriated for fleet of vehicles, for presidency, for utility vehicles, and then for that of the wife of the, or is it office of the first lady, which I believe is unconstitutional.
That's in the first place. Yes. Until it is made constitutional, perhaps it has been given the backing, the constitutional backing.
It's unconstitutional because the constitution does not provide. People voted for the president. We don't know whether he's married or not, right? And there is no office, there is no ministry called Office of the First Lady. And then
in fact, some previous presidents do not even recognize that office. Remember the former, the immediate past president did mention that his wife is actually his wife, and not more.
Yes.
So, you know, giving it all the necessary backings and financial and so on and so forth. Okay, let me get your take.
So you see that, in my view, I don't believe that the federal government has been sensitive to the feelings of Nigerians in trying to present this budget. You're presenting this budget where a lot of people are going to bed on empty stomach. You're presenting this budget when a lot of Nigerians are trekking to work. You're presenting this budget where a lot of Nigerians are resigning from work. That's doubling the already catastrophe we're seeing with unemployment. Some people are resigning because their take-home is not able to sustain their, so they are resigning, and some say it's better for them to be unemployed rather than be employed, and then your take-home is not able to afford, for instance, your transportation.
But the president would tell you that, okay, he has given wage award, you know, 35,000 naira to supplement, if you like, or to augment the situation.
Compare the population of Nigerians who are in the federal civil service to working age Nigerians. It's less than 2% of Nigerians are captured, and wherever you go, that's the number. In the UK, that number is 11%. And so, how many Nigerians are you going to cater for? A lot of Nigerians are in their private businesses, doing SMEs and all of those things. Those are people we are talking about. Yes, you've made provisions for federal civil servants alone, not even for state civil servants and local government civil servants.
Yeah, even the federal is just for a 6-month period.
A 6 months period. So you're not able to, but you're now voting money to do other things that are not priorities. So for the mere fact that people who sat down, looked at this, deliberated on it, and felt good within themselves to present this budget for consideration shows you a lot, or tells you a lot about their thought process. And if in this period you are telling Nigerians to tighten their belts, you are telling us to do away with subsidy, you are telling us to do away with all of those things,
to make sacrifices
for the nation, and you are not able to lead and to make that sacrifices, then your preachment will not fall on any. There is no willing ear that is willing to listen to you. Yeah. So I feel that the supplementary budget is a little bit insensitive, but there is a slight succor, because that's the good thing with democracies, that you have several layers. It's instructive that it's not the implementing body, is the approving body, right? So you had the legislature go through this, and this afternoon there is federal representatives has said that they knocked off the 5 something billion made available for procurement of yachts, and they have moved that to.
You can imagine how Nigerians will take that. At the moment, just like you mentioned, people are battling to have, you know, to be able to even have what to eat. Yes. You're talking about presidential yacht, you know, you're talking about luxury now.
It's so insensitive. For instance, 4 days ago, I just came back from Plateau State, where I went to see IDP camps in Mangu. If you look at the humanitarian disaster that is caused by, for instance, the crisis you have in the Middle Belt, and indeed in all parts of Nigeria, you will see the enormity. For instance, in the IDP camp that I visited, it housed 4,000 households, close to 6,500 people, and a particular politician visited them. And then that particular IDP camp, because in the local government you have 4 IDP camps and 12 distribution centers, right? That particular IDP camp got 76 bags of rice, and each household got a cup of rice, a cup measure of rice. And that is the situation with Nigerians. The Nigerians are now receiving a cup of rice, not a day, but for that visit. And then some of them are unable to go to their farmland, some of them are unable to go to their businesses. They are trapped in IDP. You had a lot of humanitarian disaster. Move away from the Middle Belt, go to the northwest, same issue. Go to the northeast, even more so. And these are people who are in crisis areas. Move away from that to come down to Nigerians who are not even in crisis areas, who are not able to fend for themselves. People are withdrawing their kids from school. People cannot even afford basic medical health care issues, right? And then the presidency has felt that this is what they want to present to Nigerians as their budget, that cars is their priority. So in my view, I believe that they have not exhibited the highest degree of judgment.
So what does this speak about? There's so much hype around rejigging the economy, around creating employment opportunities, around addressing hunger. Are these just cliches, you know? Are they just mere promises? Because 2.17 trillion naira, some will say, if you inject into the economy, for instance, looking at macroeconomic indices of this country, and then the collapsing businesses as a result of all of these challenges, what would he make? I mean, what can he do in terms of resuscitating these small businesses, in terms of reviving livelihoods and lifelines if it is channeled towards that?
If you go to the recurrent or the capital aspect of the budget, a lot of the line items there are monies that will be exported out of Nigeria and jobs that will be expected. Let's go to vehicles, for instance. The presidency, and they are buying vehicles that are not made in Nigeria. They are not assembled in Nigeria. So you are exporting jobs. You are deepening the forex crisis, right? So if you're talking about creating...
Which you claim to be addressing.
And we have local producers here that you can patronize without advertising anybody. There are about 3 local producers, and there are other coupling, what do you call that?
Those that have, that produce...
Assemble. Yes, you have them here. And the presidency doesn't want to buy from them. So you're not buying locally. So a lot of these monies you are exporting. Then another component, huge component of that money goes to security. And in that security, although you will see that there is armament purchases and armed purchases, although those things are not explicitly spelled out because you know security. But again, Nigeria has the capacity, in my view, if not that we have stifled it down. Nigeria has capacities to produce armaments. Nigeria has capacity.
We have the Nigeria Industrial, National Industrial Corporation or so, NICO, this armament manufacturing company that is in Kaduna, DICON, Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria. Perhaps that is a primary responsibility. But now you're seeing if funding is adequately provided.
We don't trust them enough. The capacities are not there. So we are exporting. We are buying armaments. We are buying arms, things that we can produce locally. To take it. So there are a lot of components of that expenditure that you see it's not coming to Nigeria. You will see that the monies have been approved, but it's not coming into the Nigerian real sector. It is going out rather than staying in. And these are executive decisions that the people in authority could make. For instance, the president can say, look, let's cancel all the foreign components of the vehicle.
Let's look at how we can add value to the economy.
Yes, so how do you intend, for instance, to advise Nigerians to buy Nigerians, spend Naira and all of those things? But you don't do that. You don't drink the Naira. You drink foreign champagnes. You
wear foreign garments.
So you
ride in foreign vehicles.
You're not even doing this with your personal resources. You're doing this with public resources. If you're doing that with personal resources, we could say, okay, that's your personal resources that you can manage. But this is public resources, and you don't want to invest it back in the country. So the presidency doesn't seem to believe in Nigeria. The presidency doesn't seem to believe in Nigerian markets. The presidency doesn't seem to believe in the capacity of Nigerian homegrown solutions to issues. And that is what I've seen advertised with their supplementary budget.
Now, ironically, who provides the checks? Because the essence of the legislature, perhaps, is to scrutinize some of the spendings and do the needful. But unfortunately, the same legislature is also caught in this same wave. Just recently buying luxurious cars, SUVs and all of that for its members. So who bailed the cat now?
Well, if you're looking for the difference between a kettle and a pot, you won't find much because both of them are black on the outside. All right, and then if you're also looking for the difference between 6 and half a dozen, you won't find any. So you have the same people who populate the presidency, for instance, is the same set of people who populate the National Assembly. They have the same ethos, they have the same worldview, they have the same attitude to life, right? So you see that there has to be a fundamental reset in the thinking within Nigeria's political elites, that they seem to be a little bit, not even a little bit, they're a far off disconnected from the everyday reality of Nigerians. And so when you have the president...
Even when they tell us that they feel the pains, that they are also listening to Nigerians, they have listening ears, they know what is going on. That's what they keep telling Nigerians.
To tell you what is happening today, for instance, we know that it's a road safety issue to have 2 people in the front of a vehicle. But today, go around Abuja. Taxis in Abuja are carrying 2 passengers in the front seats. No seatbelts, just to maximize, people are lapping each other, just so that they can go to work and come back home from work. At the back seats, you have people crowded. The vehicles is carrying more than the capacity, just so that you can subsidize, so to speak, the transport fare of Nigerians, right? But you have your lawmakers who tell you that they feel your pain buying SUVs.
In fact, the SUVs, they are looking for durable ones. They said if they buy less durable ones, they cannot, Nigerian roads cannot accommodate them, or because of the bad roads and all of that, they have to go for, bigger luxury cars, Land Cruisers and so on.
That tells you that when they say that they feel our pains, that it's just for the cameras. It's not in reality. It's just the normal governance speak. You don't want to attach any weight to such proclamations, except you see visible actions backing those up.
This brings me to this, you know, it has been agitating my mind. What happened to the civil society organizations in Nigeria? If the legislature, for instance, has failed to apply the brakes, has failed to do its oversight and ensure that, you know, public spendings are for public good, then what happened to the civil society organizations? It appears they are silenced in Nigeria.
Well, to tell you the truth, this is something I've been mulling over for a long, long time. And my conclusion is this, and it's not just my conclusion, it agrees with some of the research work that has been done, including that of Paul Collier, who wrote in his books, Wars, Guns and Votes, Democracy in Dangerous Places. You will see that certain societies are not well adapted for the kind of governance systems that they work at today. For instance, if you come to any democracy that is functioning, democracy functions better when the demand side of governance is functioning. Today, you have the supply side of democracy. What do I mean by this? The supply side of democracy is your presidents, your senators, your lawmakers, your state governors. Those are the people whose responsibility is to supply good governance. But you also have the demand side, the people who are organized in their clusters, the civil society, the media, individuals, you know, the organized, you know, all of those people. If you don't have the supply side of governance robust enough, then the demand side is always lethargic. In fact, for every democracy, it is the supply that demands that, you know, sorry, the demand that drives democracy, because the political parties, the political platforms are always lethargic. If you demand for 10 things, they could give you 7. But if you don't make up to 10 demands, they could leave you with 1. So anywhere you see democracy functioning well, anywhere, you would see that they have a robust supply demand side operating fully well. In Nigeria, due to our norms, due to culture, for instance, you see that the northern Nigeria is a little bit reserved, and you know the culture with the north. And then if you come to even the south that is not that reserved, you would also see that there is this fear that has been instilled by years of military dictatorship. So these things have rolled back, you know, liberties and have rolled back the ability of Nigerians to say, this is what we want. And then even when you have now gotten to the level of shouting on social media, this is what we want, we have not yet acquired those competencies to mobilize, because tweeting is part of it, but you have to mobilize, right? That you tweeted about an issue does not mean that you have the resources or that you have the network or that you have the wherewithal to organize in a way that sustains that advocacy until you see change happening in that regard. So my argument is this, that Nigeria has not gotten to that threshold where democracy can work for us, because the supply side is still, the demand side is still lethargic. Citizens don't demand, civil societies don't demand, and then even the few voices that demand are now few and far between. Even the few civil society groups are now few and far between, and when they are that few, it's easy for the state elements to pick up on them and then they'll run. So you see that a lot of your guys that, you know, usually demand for this thing, some of them are not here in Nigeria, and some of them who are here in Nigeria have other constitutions. They consider their kids, they consider their families, they consider. So the situation is so much so that it will take benevolence of the political actors to move Nigeria forward. That if you don't have benevolent political actors, there are no people and no organizations, but they will see few, but they are not in their clusters to make the kind of change we want to see.
Before we're able to get that elite consensus around the need to free the resources, around the need to give back to the society, around the need to say no or to halt this madness in terms of spending public resources without, and all of that. You talk about a few, you know, the few civil society organizations that are up and doing, and perhaps the challenges around their continuous existence. Again, what role are the courts playing? Because in the last couple of weeks or so, I've seen one at least of the civil society organizations talking about SERAP has been consistently championing the cause of the common people, have been consistently applying the checks, you know, trying to drive, stop some of these things through litigations and so on and so forth. But where are these litigations going to? We haven't seen much of response on the part of the judiciary, you know, granting some of those reliefs. Like the issue of the buying of the SUVs, I'm sure SERAP is in court challenging that. But how far can it go?
You remember when I told you that you can't find any difference between 6 and half a 7? I was using that to tell you the metaphorical, the similarities between the kind of quality of individuals you have at your National Assembly and the quality of individuals you have at the executive arm of government. But you also find that the people you have in the legislature and in the executive are not so different from the people who have unfortunately found themselves in the judiciary. Yes, there are a few judges who are sterling in performance, in my own view, but the whole judiciary as an arm or organ of government, right, is not, the views are out there. You go to the public, you ask people, there is a certain way Nigerians view their judiciary, and it's for a good reason, because we don't believe that that arm of government has functioned or has lived up to its hype or to the expectations of Nigerians. So yes, you have that. And what Serap is doing is using one advocacy tool. There are others who could use more, and that's why we encourage people like that, organizations like that, to start, making efforts. And then we also encourage Nigerians in their clusters, because apart from organizations, you will see that the organizations are mainly funded by international interest groups, and that is unhealthy for our democracy, because that means that their advocacy appetite is dictated by people who are not in this country. Because if you write your proposal that you want to do XYZ, someone who is not from this country has to sit over those proposals to approve it. And so you see that a lot of their funding are coming from the international community, and therefore the international community dictates where even our civil society moves. And that is unhealthy. That's why I'm beginning to challenge Nigerians, especially Nigerians who live in the diaspora and Nigerians who are here who are well-to-do, to find ways to support credible organizations, credible individuals that are championing the cause of the ordinary man. Because for businessmen, they are laid back. They will tell you they don't want to involve because the government will come after their businesses. But there are people who have chosen that this advancing the cause of the society is what they will do. But if you leave them without the kind of resources they need, then they are not able to do much, or they are not able to scale their activities to such a point where it could make national impacts. That's why I invite Nigerians to find credible individuals, credible organizations who are working on thematic areas, especially those areas that drive the collective good of the nation. Those people need support, and Nigerians must find a way to support them.
Before now, there seems to be a rallying point, around the labor movement, the organized labor, which in most cases rise up to some of these excesses of the executives and so on and so forth. But today, what we're seeing is the reverse. The situation, the incident that happened yesterday, for instance, in Akwa Ibom, is it in Imo? Rather,
in Imo State,
left much to be desired. A whole labor president of the NLC was abducted, maltreated, and all of that.
And workers still went to work today.
Yes, and there are some people who talk about the diminishing impact, the diminishing integrity, and the diminishing fighting power, if you like, of the NLC. If it were perhaps during the days of the Pascal Bapia of this world, the days of the Oshomoles, and all of that, it would have been a different story. Perhaps the state would have been shut down as a result of. But today, the labor movement, which ought to be, a rallying point for the ordinary people, has no bite, has no teeth to bite. Why are we here?
Well, it's sad that we're here, but also you will see that politicians and political elites will not allow a vibrant civil society. That's why you see that elections into certain offices, appointments into certain offices have political connotations. You wouldn't believe it. Let's go back to the states. At the state level, it's difficult to emerge as SUG presidents in the local universities without having people in political authority making decisions. So if you have people in political authority who have now a grand strategy to emasculate the unions, voices, the unions, both at the student union level, both at the elite level, which is the NLC, TUC, all of those, Pengasing, all of those things. If you have politicians who are determining who becomes what in those organizations, then you would see that their activities are beginning to be watered down. And then even within the organizations itself, the quality of leadership you have, let's stop blaming the politicians. Even those of them that are now in the quality of leadership they provide, you won't find substantial difference yet again between the qualities of leaders you have at those trade union congresses and all of those things, without mentioning any name in particular, to the quality of individuals who later found themselves in government. So it's sad reality that we're here today, and my goal here is not to bemoan or to keep crying over lamenting, but I am sensing that perhaps if part of me wants even this to get worse than this, to be frank with you, to get to the point where the engine will knock and we'll see that it has knocked. For instance, I keep asking, what is the development partners aspect of where we are in this? And we have to take some blames locally because we caused what we are seeing in Nigeria. All of us, not just the president, but all of us. I was
actually coming to the electorate because we also are part of the problem, substantially.
Yes, we are part of the problem, so we'll take our time to discuss our local contributions to this madness that we see. But when you ask yourself, what is the involvement of our quote-unquote development partners? And you will see that it appears that it's troubling for me. When you see multilateral loans, when they are negotiated, like there's a loan component to this thing, of course. When you see multilateral loans when they are negotiated, you will see that they are not negotiated with the best interest of Nigeria at heart. When you see World Bank programs, the IMF programs designed for instance, people don't know that the 8,000 palliative was not designed by Tinubu. It was designed by IMF and World Bank. At that level, designing this.
It was just a template given to.
It was a template given. It was a funding parameter. In fact, they have designed the way they. So these are programs they design in their offices and prescribe to Nigeria. And so you see that these things are. For instance, where do we even borrow money from? We borrow money from banks in the UK. We sell bonds to them. Even in the UK, where we borrow money from, the Prime Minister cannot have the kind of largesse and expenditure that Nigerian Prime Ministers are doing. So you see that their democracies are functioning well. Yet they keep giving us unsustainable loans to be buying yachts, to be building presidential mansions, unsustainable loans. So
isn't that what we want? Because we are not going there to ask for things that would develop our people, rather things that are self-serving.
So you see, it's also in their interest that Nigeria doesn't emerge. I think so. And I have reasons to believe so, but that's my own belief. But I think that a part of me wants this engine to knock so that it will get to a day when we want to buy presidential fleets, but we don't have the money and we don't know who to borrow from. So maybe that day it will force us to have a reset in our thinking, because today the president can still run to Dubai, the president can still run to England, the president can call a few consultants and they will design bond issues. The president can, run around and get money, right? The other day they have approved medium term borrowings from now to. So you see all those approved borrowings.
That's some borrowing trajectory still with us. It appears we don't have any homegrown solution.
It's troubling because, and then if you are borrowing to fund meaningful activities, especially activities that can pay back those loans, fine. But we are borrowing to buy yachts. We are borrowing to buy fleets for people who are not.
Payback is an issue. Now, a number of loans that have been obtained by the previous government, at what rate then? We're talking about 500 naira or thereabout to $1. And here we are with almost 1,000 to $1. So it means we have to double our payment in terms of, triple our payment in terms of servicing the loans. Okay, well, I think we have to take a break. When we return, we'll continue from there. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics. And I have in the studio Chima Kishan, a good governance advocate, who together will be looking at the supplementary appropriation bill and, of course, the spendings put together by government and how they add up to the current situation we find ourselves in Nigeria. We will take a break. When we return, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
That's great.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. You can do well by joining us across all our social platforms. And of course, you can watch us live on YouTube. And today our talking point is the supplementary appropriation bill and of course the spendings put together by the Nigerian government, talking about renovations of houses, buying of, utility vehicles, and so on and so forth. And Chima Christian, good governance advocate, is still with us in the studio. Just before the break, we're looking at the trajectory, the borrowing trajectory, and how it affects, our ability to even save, looking at our circumstance. And then I was talking about this same trajectory going on, moving on. We have it in our line items, borrowings and borrowings and borrowings. When are we going to look at homegrown solution to our problems?
It seems that we are not able to do that, especially with the kind of attitude to life that we have from elected both representatives and those who are the executive arm of government, because what you want is people who are interested in quick wins or in short-termism, people who are investing in projects and programs to massage their ego, to say that I did this, I did that, and whether the process of doing it is sustainable or not, people don't ask them questions. For instance, the things that they are doing, these people who are doing this thing will not be even alive when we're paying back these loans. I think the law of nature will take care of them.
Certainly.
And those of us who are left here, and then the younger ones who are left, who will bear the burden of this, are not asking questions as to how we have allowed these individuals to
pile up all of this
in our names and spend the future earnings of our children and our grandchildren. And it's quite sad that this is happening. But I'm even, a part of me wants us to get to that place where we can't even borrow again. So that maybe we'll have to sit down and say, look, we can no longer borrow. Even our closest friends.
But are we not getting there, Chima, when we are beginning to, find it difficult to even pay salaries? We're finding it difficult to do anything and without borrowing and all of that. Are we not getting there with all the resources available in this country? Human, endowments and solid minerals, the oil, the gas, and all of that. We have all the resources.
So there's a problem with the fundamental structure and the fundamental approach of Nigerians to governance. And it's been debated a whole lot of times that the structure cannot hold Nigeria, because you have this attitude to work where people gather every day in Abuja, every month and in Abuja to share resources, and that shuts down some parts of your brain. And within that, the governors are not doing as much as they could. The states are not...
easy money.
Yes,
national cake.
There's the national cake.
You just have to cut.
And then what you have to do this national cake is to run around, borrow money, and you call it national cake. No, it's not a national cake. It's national debt trap. And of course, you've started seeing that some of the things, for instance, some of the countries who have started defaulting, especially to loans from China, there's now, because their loans are tied to projects, you now see defaulters that China is aggressively repossessing some critical infrastructure.
Exactly.
And they're usually interested in ports, they're usually interested in railways, they're usually interested in national assets, and all of those things, and commodities. And Nigeria, yes, we have some component of our loans coming from Asia, but a major component of our loans coming from the West. So you see that Nigeria is getting to a place where we would need, for instance, debt pardon or debt restructuring or all of those things.
Are we likely to get that? When we got it before, what did we do with it?
I'm even praying that this engine knocks so fast. Even the people who are lending Nigeria unsustainable loans, I want them to lose their money.
Are they not also looking at, are they just giving it like that? They're also looking at the prospects.
Yes, because Nigeria, they know that Nigeria has a lot of resources. They know that Nigeria can do well. But for some reason, and we know the reasons that Nigeria is not doing well. But again, I want there to be a debt default that will shake the nation so that we don't have that capacity to borrow, and then we can now sit down. Since now that we have options, it seems that anytime we have a slight cash issue, we run around, we run out. And then the problem, for instance, this supplementary budget was sent on Tuesday, and on Thursday it was out.
Yeah, the speed
at which it was, the quality of the robustness of the argument. And it seems as if you challenge the budget, if you challenge the line items in the budget, it seems as if you are challenging the government. That we don't even have it in our dictum, in our dictionary, in our frame of reference, in our term of reference, that someone can say, I support the government, but on this issue, the government is wrong. And any attempt to draw the line becomes opposition, becomes you are fighting the president.
How can you even draw the line when you're also part of the problem?
Well,
remember the other time they're pointing accusing fingers at the executive. The spokesman for the Senate was like, why are you talking about SUVs when governors have, ministers have a fleet of cars and all of that. Nobody's talking about that.
And then that shows you also the quality of opposition we have, because we claim we have opposition in Nigeria. For instance, you have a Labour Party and a PDP. When these two parties come together, they don't form the majority, but they form a sizable number to impact public policies. But you don't hear their voices in this argument. And you ask yourself, what then is the difference between V and W?
Perhaps they're also part of the, I mean, some say the political parties are just mere names, you know, just vehicles for getting to the office and all of that. Not that there is difference in terms of ideology on the part of the people, because if there is, that is the essence of opposition.
So what you're telling me is that W is just two V's put together?
Perhaps. So now looking at even, I mean, it's also baffled a lot of people that we are gradually becoming a one-party state.
Yes.
I don't know whether you're noticing that.
Yes, yes.
Now, the major opposition party, the PDP, is being accommodated somehow. You know, just recently, the governors of the PDP were at the villa, showering praises on the president. And
even thanking him.
Endorsing the Supreme Court judgment when their presidential candidate is there crying, woof, you know, and all of that. And then the Labour Party also seems to be silenced at some point, you know. So gradually, we're losing, you know, from all ramifications, some will say. Civil society organizations are almost completely silenced. Opposition parties are silenced. You know, I don't know where we're heading to.
Well, the thing is, it's so troubling because that also brings me to our own component of the problem.
Our part of the contribution.
Because we are contributing, because you don't just sit down and apportion blames at the people in the authority, people in government, people in political parties. We have to also collectively take part of the responsibility. I'll give you two examples. At any weekend, any random weekend, you go to any senator's house, or any House of Representatives house, or any State House of Assembly member's house, and just sit down and listen as a journalist. The kind of things you will see here, there.
People coming with.
No, people will come. And nobody will demand, oh, lawmaker, our public school needs this thing. What they want is give me money so I can pay my child's private school.
Individualism. People are looking at
rabid individualism. Nobody is advocating for the collective primary health care center. They want you to give them money to go to a private clinic to take care of their wards.
Instead of insisting that you make it functional so that everyone can benefit.
Nobody is talking about fixing the public school. They want you to give them money to sponsor their kids abroad. And that is the problem. And so when you go to, you will still see that the individuality, or you call it the selfishness of our political elite, is a reflection of the selfishness of the people you have down there, because we don't go to make collective requests, we go to make individual requests. When they even come to our town hall meetings, because we criticize them in the media, we criticize them on TV, but when they come to town hall meetings, with the same
kind of acceptance,
we start beating their drums, we start telling them that they've been the best thing since fried rice, and all of those things. And we are telling them this in hope that they will give us one or two pegs. And I'll give you another example. This is an old experiment, so I don't even know what it will be today. There's this person that was appointed, I can't remember the office now, but a federal appointment. And his salary and everything was around 700,000. And you know that these ministers, they don't earn much legally, except if there is other things that
looking at the
money.
statutory
They don't earn much. But when you look at the requests they get on a monthly basis, some of them get requests on a monthly basis close to the tune of 200 million naira. People who accident victims, this, the other,
so
even the church, the mosques, the organized religious community are pressing them, milking them dry, the individuals, and then if you don't attend to these individuals, right, you're not going to be re-elected. So you want to steal as much as you want to satisfy individual needs.
A very recent example, perhaps has to do with River State. The allegations around 2 billion naira monthly. And, you know, the Godfather also talking about, you know, nurturing and maintaining structure, what have you. So this gives you an impression with regards to why political elites would have to go extra mile to get certain amount of money, you know, from SYZ to be able to sustain this so-called structure.
So-called structure, because this structure are structure of selfish individuals who don't care what you do in the society, so far you give them perks, so far you give them allowances, so far you give them, you know, things at the end of the month. So this is the rabid individualism and the viral selfishness you see within the Nigerian collective conscience. And when individuals are that, and I tell you this, look, It's good to be vibrant, and we are. It's good to be, resourceful, and we are. But there are problems you cannot solve at the individual level. There are problems. Let's go to insecurity, for instance. You remember the times when we had communal life, when you don't have to erect a fence, when the communities live together, and then we moved from there to a time where if you build a house, you have to have a high fence, and then you put broken bottles on the fence, you remember? And that was all you need to ensure your security. Then you now move to that time, you need a high fence, you need bottles, and then you now need the guard. You now need electric fence. Today, you need high walls. In fact, in some places, you will need soldiers, not just policemen. And still, you will be tucked into dogs, a bulletproof vehicle. We are getting to the point where even your bulletproof vehicle is not enough, that you may have to start building bulletproof houses. How long do we have to wait until we find out that problems like this cannot be solved at the individual level? So today, what you find people doing is to buy bulletproof vehicles. What you find people doing is to acquire money to hire the service of policemen. And we're telling them, look, a time will come when your policemen will be useless to you, your bulletproof vehicle will be useless to you, your bomb-proof homes will be useless to you, because problems like this must be solved at a collective, at a societal level. So when you have a bunch of individuals who are always individualistic, who are always looking out for what they can get, then you see people building mansions, but they won't be able to live in those mansions.
When are we going to have this elite consensus around the need to change this narrative? For instance, yes, it is not sustainable, just like you said. No matter how you run away from the people, you will still have to meet them. Yes. You can't continue to live in isolation. And these are people who claim to serve the people, and yet they are pushing themselves away from the people, secluding themselves, making it difficult for people to even access them. When are we going to have this consensus? When will the elites, the leadership elites, realize that there is need for us to come together and look at these ordinary people that we are loading on? How do we ease this burden? How do we reduce this tension? How do we make some adjustments and sacrifices? How do we free some resources for development of the people? Because it has a limit as to how much you can continue to corner the resources.
There's this local thing people say down there in the south, is they say that he who is hard-pressed is always ahead. That's when you are hard-pressed, you want to ease yourself, that you're usually the person who is running the fastest. The other people who are accompanying you will be behind you. And then if you ask me, between Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians, and the political elite, who is hard-pressed, I would think that it's the ordinary Nigerians. If you're talking about bad roads, who experiences it the more? Ordinary Nigerians, because we have rickety vehicles, they have shock absorbers that, then you talk about the economy, they can easily acquire FX, they can call their bankers and get it, we can't. If you talk about healthcare, they can easily fly abroad, we can't. So it is the ordinary Nigerians, in my view, that are suffering the most from a decayed society. And therefore, I think that it is who suffers the most, or he who is hard-pressed, should lead the charge. We have left it long enough waiting for the political elites to lead the revolution of Nigeria, or to
have a consensus. I mean, to have a consensus, there needs for some concession now.
But that is now becoming clear to us that, look, it may appear that the political elites, we may have to wait forever for them to have that consensus, that we, the ordinary people, will have to start thinking, organizing in ways that can help us get there faster. And that is one route. But if we can't organize at that level, if we can't organize and say, look, we are the ones who are suffering from terrible roads, terrible healthcare, terrible education, joblessness, not them. If we can't organize at that level, maybe then we all have to start fasting and praying for this engine to knock. Because like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm thinking like that, because if we have politicians who won't act, and you have the people who won't act, then let us wait till everything knocks. Then we can now say, look, whether you are in your house or you are in the road, hunger will get you.
Certainly.
And once we get to that, then maybe we will start having honest conversations amongst ourselves. And when the time comes, whether you are in the city or in the village, because today, many politicians have run away from the village. Even when they go home, they stop at the state capitals and then the towns, right?
A number of even the elected officials, for how many of them are staying in their respective states? Virtually everyone has moved to the center.
We are in Abuja now. You can
from the center.
Count the number of governors who are
today.
Here
we have absentee governors.
Yes.
People.
But the time will come, if we don't take our time, whether you're in the city or in the village, you are not protected. And when that time comes, maybe the elite will be forced to help, not because they're helping the ordinary man, but because they will see that helping the ordinary man is a way of protecting themselves.
But looking at the common man as well, looking at the ordinary people, the electorates, the role they play. Yes. We have a leadership recruitment process, that comes after 4 years. But the same cycle of approach, people go to the polls because they're expecting a sachet of, a packet of noodle, or they're expecting, some soap or some detergent or whatever, or some wrappers to wear and all of that. For that period of time, and then they can mortgage their 4 years. They don't care, who becomes what, so long as they will get what. When are we going to change this mentality? Because leadership recruitment process is where we have to start from, for instance.
What I find when I analyze that is that we have resilience at the individual level. People are resilient enough at the individual level. When they go to work, they don't get it, they find something, they start up businesses, they face challenges, and at the individual level, they're able to have that resilience. But at the collective level, our resilience is next to zero. What do I mean? Once people come out to vote once, and their wish doesn't come to pass, they tell you, oh, forget that thing, they have rigged the elections. And because we believe that they have rigged the elections, anything you can get it and can it.
At that point in time.
At that point in time.
And that's all. And that's the only
Yes, so because we don't have that collective resilience. And I'm telling you the truth, there are a lot of young people who, if you don't take time, they will never vote again, just because they were disappointed in the last presidential elections. And what Supreme Court did, and the manner through which Supreme Court did that thing, discouraged a lot of people. And then you will remember that a lot of our parents did not recover from 1993. When that Abiola's election was annulled, a lot of them who were vibrant then did not recover. Some have not voted from 1993 to this period. And then if you have this crop of young people, my age, the NSAS generation, if you have a lot of people who went to the polls,
part of the NSAS?
No, it's my generation. Yes, I'm part of it. So
the 2K generation, right?
Yes, so if you have that generation who have this, we are resilient. You see us doing things in sports, in entertainment, but when it comes to societal building, it's so emotive that we think, oh, we can just go there and vote, and once we vote, we go home and sleep, and everything will become magically. It doesn't happen that way.
Are we not learning from the last general election? Yes, sufficiently there was a lot of mobilization around youth involvement, youth participation, which was quite encouraging, some would say. But then, how do we sustain it with some of these lapses and some of these challenges that come up with this discouragement? How can we sustain this momentum, mobilization of the youth towards playing a critical role, a vital role in our leadership recruitment process? Because perhaps that's what will change the narrative. So how do we sustain it?
A lot of that will have to you have to do it at the political party level and then at the civil society level, right? For instance, I've asked these questions a lot of times. What is the advocacy appetite of, for instance, the obedient movement? What is the advocacy appetite of that young people? Because you know that a cluster of young people, they moved in one direction. We all moved in one direction. And when you ask, what is the advocacy appetite of that people? The advocacy appetite have been advocating that is slippery. Because you see that we tend to want to have a whole-scale change of government. Overnight. And which is a good attitude to have. But if you don't achieve that, why don't you go for the second level, which is piecemeal change? For instance, between the time obedient movement came on board and now, Buhari has implemented, and Buhari and Emefiele had implemented their Naira policy. You don't see any 1 million man march against that policy. And that policy killed a lot of businesses. That policy killed a lot of people. But you didn't see that kind of organized opposition to that policy. There was first subsidy removal. There was. So you have seen a lot of...
It came and gone,
Yes, and there is middle belt insecurity in the middle belt. There is still crisis in the core north. There is the general insecurity, and then there is this misery and economic hardship available. But you don't see any organized. But when it comes to whole-scale removing or unbundling of people in government, you will see LFOs. We just as if we are jolted up from sleep. And I'm saying that that's not a good attitude to have, because what that will do to you is that you leave your energy untapped until the next 4 years. What you want to do is, even now that Tinubu is the president, I've been advocating this and I'm using your platform to advocate it, young people should not lose hope. For instance, if Tinubu had planned to do 10 good things, how can we as young people organize and put pressure on him to increase it to 15? If he had planned to do 7 bad things, how can we organize and limit it to 2? And that's mobilization. And in that organization...
Take, for instance, the spendings we're talking about. How much of resistance do we see on the part of
Beautiful. What happened to NLC chairman yesterday? What do you see from the young people? So, and then, if you don't organize and if you don't get us engaged in that cluster, in that trying to... People will lose momentum because you're going to allow them to go to bed, sleep, and then try to revive them in 2027, and then they will tell you what we did in 2023, what is the outcome, and a lot of people will not, in fact, as we speak, between that election and now, you will know how many young Nigerians, especially those who have the opportunity, that have left this country. And
just as you are planning, those seeking your votes are also planning. Amassing wealth, keeping it, they know what to do. You know, during elections, they know the right buttons to press and all of that. Quite unfortunate. Thank you very much, Chima Christian, for your informed perspective on this very important topic. We really appreciate your coming.
Thank you so much for having me. And with all this we have said, it's my fundamental belief that Africa's morning is at hand. It's not yet time to give in to pessimism. We can't give in to that.
That's right. From that optimistic note, viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics Live, airing every weekday, and also our special package on Fridays, during which we open our telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Once again, we thank you for watching. I am Shapiu Suleiman.